Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to For Fox's Sake. My name is Pete Selby alongside James Torrell. And James, you're on for the second day running after the breaking news yesterday that Marty Cifuentes is gone. He has gone. And we're looking forward on this podcast, on this live podcast. So if you want to get involved, we're looking forward. We're being optimistic. Well, we're not being optimistic, okay? I'm not gonna say that straight away, okay? We're gonna try and be. But we're looking forward. Who is next for Leicester City? So we're looking into the future. All the stuff about Marty, etc., that can be read about on forfox8.news over the next few days. First of all, for fox8.news, yes, a plug straight away. For £5 a month, you can get all the best coverage of Leicester City from Andy Moore, top journalist, from myself, and also from Rob Hayes as well. Plenty of fan columns as well, but also you're getting an awful lot of content for just £5 a month. And what that £5 does as well, it keeps these podcasts free. So go and take a look at forfox8.news. If you like what you see, then you can subscribe for £5 a month and get all that great content. There's loads of features, in-depth coverage of Leicester City women as well. There's a nice 100 top Leicester players countdown going on. Plenty of quizzes, plenty of features, interviews with former players, in-depth analysis of games, previews as well. All sorts of content on there. Loads coming as well. So my advice, head to forfox8.news right now. Check it out. And again, if you want to sign up, then please do, because again, it's great and it helps the podcast. Also, and we haven't said this for probably about 10 years on the podcast, but I heard it the other day on a different podcast, not even to do with football. Rate and review. Remember all that stuff. Give us a 5-star review if you like. Well, yeah, please do, because you can listen to this on Spotify and or on Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen to the audio only version, that'll be out in about an hour or half an hour's time. Depends on when I upload it. That's basically how it works. So yeah, if you do like to give us a review, that will help the podcast as well. Okay, the latest news on fox8.news. There's Andy King, Power Saviour. Do you get it? Andy King, Power Saviour. A nice column written by Andy Moore regarding Andy King taking over as Leicester City caretaker manager. How long for, we don't know. Comments if you are watching live. You can watch live through YouTube, or maybe you're watching on X, on Twitter, or maybe on Facebook. However you're watching, very good evening to you. Make sure you do comment. Tell us who you want to be Leicester City manager. That's what we're talking now. It's a bit of a free-for-all, James. We can talk about who we want as Leicester City manager now, who we think should get the job, who you think's going to get the job, and whether you want someone to come in for the next few months to probably keep us up after a points deduction is probably coming our way this week, or whether you want someone to come in and be the manager now and for the next 2 or 3 seasons, and hopefully lead us to more and more glory and ultimate world domination of football, as we all hope. James, how are you?
Yes, I'm not doing too bad. How are you? What number are you up to in your countdown of the best?
Now, let's talk about the 100. But before we get on to the manager, the 100 countdown. So, if you've not been on for fox8.news, go on there now, and you can see the 100 countdown is getting underway. And every week we're releasing 5 players. We're on to I think we're on to the 70s now. We're on to number 79, and there's different parameters of why we've selected them. Don't get me wrong, this has kept me awake at night, this list. People are moving up and down the lists all the time. There is one player who has not appeared in the list, who is still a member of the first team squad. Would you ever believe it? But there we go. And who have we got? We've just released numbers 84 to 80. There's an awful lot of 1980s players in there, and there's a huge defensive lineup that's lined up between numbers 84 and 80. Some really good defenders of the past. And even there is a Premier League winner in that section of the top 100 players. The next 5 includes, off the top of my head, a few players from a long time ago, maybe even the Leicester Foss days, and there is also a famous player from the late 90s who makes an appearance as well. So, and also a guy who is famous for scoring very good goals in the late 70s and 80s. But anyway, that's all on for fox8.news. Managers. James, you were on yesterday talking to Andy Moore. Great show, by the way. I wasn't available, unfortunately. Rob wasn't available. Andy did a brilliant job hosting. Absolutely fantastic. He's the top journalist for fox8.news because he's got all the contacts. And by the way, 1 or 2 people asked me about that subscription amount, saying, oh, there's places elsewhere where you can get views and opinions for free. Absolutely, completely.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have people working full time. So Andy's working full time on producing these columns, getting hold of former players, talking, if there's any kind of rumours regarding players, talking to journalists over in that sort of country or wherever they are, talking to clubs, etc. So that's what that's what we're doing here. We're trying to produce an independent and comprehensive, in-depth look at Leicester City with basically people working on it full time. That's why it is the price of a pint per month.
Yeah,
James,
you get
what I
me
want
right.
to know is,
Oh, go on. Sorry.
I've interrupted you there. I want to know, James, top of the shop. Who do you want as Leicester City manager? No messing. Who do you want?
Actually, today I've been thinking my choice would be Gareth Southgate.
I'm sorry, James. There was a breakup on the line there. I thought you just said Gareth Southgate. Can anyone confirm? Hang on, wait. Yes, James just said Gareth Southgate. James, now we've got a slightly different camera angle here. I can't see whatever you're drinking, but whatever it is, put it down. There's people you can talk to, okay? I'll give you a leaflet at the end of the show. Gareth Southgate as Leicester manager. Now, are you just talking about someone who will never come to the football club? Is that your number one target in the unrealistic list?
Yeah, I mean, he was. I think. Hang on, let me just get the odds up because he was.
Oh, I've got them. I've got them. You throw a name, I'll tell you the odds, mate. That's what I do for a job.
What what are his odds today? Hang on, he's 16 to
I'll
1.
give you three figures. I'll give you three figures. Whatever you want, I'll double it.
So he's 16 to 1 apparently, and I had not thought about him until I saw him, and I thought I don't know if he wants to be a football manager anymore.
Not at Leicester.
Yeah, you never know.
We do, but go on. Okay, he's your unrealistic number one choice. Okay, I've got to think of an unrealistic number one choice. But realistically, okay, I was shot down at work, by the way, for my number one target because they claimed he's on the unrealistic list. Go on, and who's your next?
I think Steven Gerrard wouldn't be the worst choice in the world.
Steven Gerrard would not be the worst choice in the world. He's I mean, first of all, I think he wants to come back, and if he can if he can replicate what he did up at Rangers, and also it's a bit of a name. I know we went down that route with Ruud van Nistelrooy, and of course that worked out absolutely terribly. Let us know out there who you want. We've got Pulis would be free. Very nice. Not at all. I know, we don't want Pulis. We've also got Mark Robins will be a safe bet. He will cost money, and he may not want to come here from Stoke. I think the Mark Robins train has probably gone now, unless he comes off it at Leicester and from his train to Stoke, basically. In that analogy, I would love Mark Robins at Leicester. Actually, I think I think it would be exactly the sort of manager we need. But I agree. I don't think he's going to leave Stoke. I think he's probably on a fair whack there.
I would really like Will Still, but I could understand why people wouldn't want him because he
of the disaster.
Yeah, at Southampton, and people would think, maybe people think he's a bit of a laptop manager or he hasn't got that much experience. But I'm fairly convinced that he thinks very deeply about football. But yeah, I mean, Robbie Savage is 25 to 1 here, so. That could be interesting. Tony Mowbray at 14 to 1. I mean, are these people really? Are we really going to hire people like this?
Someone on short term until summer, get the technical director in and players out and start the rebuild, says Blue Fox forever. Now, Blue Fox, I am completely with you on that. My normal way of thinking when it comes to a manager, I like to install a manager. If you're part of halfway through a season, etc., I like to get a manager who you think maybe will be there for the long term. But on this point, I actually agree. I think maybe getting someone in just in an interim period until the summer, and then you bring in a technical director, hopefully beforehand, and then a technical director.
The technical director should come before the appointment of the long-term manager.
Absolutely. So the technical director comes in, and then the technical director can bring in a manager who can work with, and they know probably each other, and they think along the same wavelengths, and also they can then sign some players that they all hopefully agree with. Also, a nice message here. I always wonder who the people are who comes up with people like Southgate and Gerrard. Well, there he is. His name's James Terrell. But seriously, I was looking down the list, and there's one or two. I'm kind of torn between the looking long term and looking for the short term, rumor has it that there's going to be an experienced manager comes in, and I'd imagine if that's the case, that would be someone just from now until the end of the season. Okay, and you give them a nice bit of cash if they keep us to stay, keep us up in the league, because we're expecting that 9 points taken off us at least, maybe on Thursday. My spies tell me, but. When it comes to you've made one name already. A friend of mine really likes the appointment, but just a steady hand to shore the defense up, and that the crowd can maybe get behind, and someone who maybe is not someone to go forward with, but just until the summer. And you mentioned Tony Mowbray, and he's still in football. He wants to work in football. Nigel Pearson. A lot of people say Nigel. The problem with Nigel is he fit enough to be a manager? Apparently, the answer is yes, because he's obviously had his health problems. Does he want to come back to Leicester? Not too sure. If he comes back, would he want to come back maybe higher up in the director's box, etc.?
Can he
But
come
if he
back?
does that, do we want him as manager first? And then if he moves upstairs, we've seen the problems that can happen at other clubs when that happens. I'm not too sure about Nigel. Okay. I think if Nigel Pearson comes back as Leicester manager, I think that would be an appointment for
Is he
about 2 or
bringing
3
his
years.
son with him?
I think I don't know about that, but so if it's going to be an older manager just until the end of the season, someone like Tony Mowbray, I wouldn't be sad about. I wouldn't be annoyed about. Okay, because that's a silly pair of hands. I'm going to throw straight out there my choice for the manager, and that would probably be in the summer, but it might be on the unrealistic list. Would be Lee Carsley, someone who's worked with
I
young
would
players.
go for him.
Yeah, someone who's worked with young players, obviously very well at England, who would know a lot of our youth players who have played for England at that sort of level, and also I think someone who the youth coming through would look at and go, well, hang on, there's a guy who, first of all, knows how to bring through youth players. I think he would really, I think he would suit the training ground, etc. Look at the facilities and go, right, I can make best use of these. Something which I think the last few managers haven't, probably since Enzo, and hopefully build the squad forward using the youth players, but also I think probably get the respect and get the first team players going, and are not afraid to make tough decisions and get rid of a few and banish a few, which I know Marty Cifuentes did, but there's obviously a bit of an issue there between Cifuentes and a few players. If you look at the reaction from his sacking, it's not exactly, everyone's not crying tears and going around his house and shaking his hand and giving him a hug and saying we're very sorry.
There's been a fair few Instagram posts today, haven't there? But I think that's just marketing and brand. I don't even really know why they do it. I guess they think they have to, but it doesn't really mean anything.
Exactly. But that would be my choice. Now, another comment here again, stop looking for managers in Britain. I get your point, but if we're looking for a manager in Britain, that would be a choice. But also it would be a choice of someone who can build the club up from the bottom, which is exactly what we need, and someone who could bring the youth through. Now, if there is a manager out there in Europe who is young and plays exciting football and players can get behind, etc., then great. Then bring them. If the Bodo Glimt manager wants to come here, then great. That'd be fantastic. But that's for what, or if there's an assistant manager somewhere at maybe one of the top clubs who wants to be a manager, where have we seen that before? Enzo Maresca worked out quite well. Then I'll be all for that. But we're throwing names out there at the moment. You've got pay Carlisle a few quid and get Mark Hughes. Not too sure about Mark Hughes now, but there was one person you mentioned with Will Still who would be a big no from me. But there is a former Southampton manager who I actually wanted at Leicester. Now, I know he's probably been tarnished by a couple of 9-0s, but you've got to remember how Ralph Hasenhüttl got Southampton playing for a number of seasons beforehand, and very, very exciting. Real high press, a real presence on the sideline as well. And he likes his teams to press very high, very hard, win the ball back, play exciting football, a little bit in a mode of a Jurgen Klopp light. And when it works really well. Of course, when it doesn't work and you've got a team who maybe haven't got the quality of a Liverpool that they can fall back on, then it can kind of turn around and you get beat 9-0. But I thought for a long time that he would be an exciting manager down at Leicester, but I think he would be more a project manager, maybe one for the summer if they want to go down that route. What do you think?
Yeah, I would love Hasenhüttl to come in. He obviously he does come from the German school, but I think he's quite pragmatic as well. I agree with. I didn't catch the name of the person who wrote about stop looking for managers in Britain. I agree with that. The only issue I would have with the only issue with that idea is being able to find these managers that is not just a punt requires a good structure and a good scouting department that we don't have, right? So, you know, I know understand that people might get annoyed that football journalists keep going back to like Brighton, but for Brighton to replace Potter with De Zerbi and then replace De Zerbi with Hertzler, that's because they have a very tight, cohesive structure, and they know what they're looking for, and they have all of these kind of variables that they want from a manager, which we do not have. So I think it's probably easier for now maybe to go for someone from Britain, or someone who has experience managing in Britain if you are just going from a blank slate, which we have been doing really since Maresca.
Yeah, and I think also if we're getting a steady pair of hands, it's more than likely going to be from these shores. Now, Andy's getting in contact. Andy Moore from for Fox8.news. Evening, lads. I'm compiling an article tonight with a few names popped up on my list. We'll be posting free tomorrow. So there you go. If you head to for Fox8.news in the morning, so that will be tomorrow. That's Tuesday, the 27th. If you're listening back or watching back to a recording of this, then head to for Fox8.news and you'll be able to read that for free. And then, of course, you can peruse the website. And if you want to then subscribe for the price of a pint per month, then please do. Again, that keeps this podcast also free as well. There's going to be further podcasts throughout the week. There's the preview coming up later in the week for the game at the weekend. And also, there's a really, really good women's show coming up, the women's football show. I was at the game actually yesterday against West Ham at King Power Stadium. A really dodgy refereeing decision. Should have had a penalty, Leicester. But more on that tomorrow with Lily. And I think she's got a really good guest as well on. So make sure you stay tuned for that. That will be live on this channel. And you'll be able to listen back to that and obviously watch it back as well. Also, don't forget, if you're a fan of the Leicester City women's side, with their new signing, Alicia Lehman, but also if you know anyone who goes, maybe your nieces go, maybe your nephews go, again, head to for Fox8.news because there's comprehensive coverage of Leicester City women with plenty of special guests, and we're talking to all the big players. We've got a lovely interview actually with Kerry Koch, who was who's the stadium announcer there. We've been talking to Sky Sports commentators regarding the January transfer window with Leicester. Okay, we're getting all the big names on for Fox8.news when it comes to the women's side of things. So do make sure, if you know anyone who goes down to the ground as a fan of the club, then make sure you point them in the direction of for Fox8.news for all the best coverage of Leicester City women. But we're talking about the men's manager's job that's up for grabs. I want names. It was never a penalty. She dived. Well, I was at the other end of the field, actually. So I was down the other end. So from where I looked, it was it looked a penalty. And, I jumped up in the air. I got half a view because my hot dog actually kind of blocked the other half of the view. And also, by the way, you can have a pint in the stands now at the King Power when it comes to the women's game. So there you go. Something for a nice summer's day. We can all go along and watch the women play and have a beer in the stand. Sounds nice. Right. Oh dear. I know a big angry Aussie called Ange, says Tom. Right. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that ship has definitely gone. I'm not too sure about that.
I think so.
Later on in the week, James, we're expecting this points deduction. Okay, let's just say 9 points, and that will put us down level on points with third from bottom in the league. Now, this league is so tight. Okay, so we won't be stuck in a massive relegation dogfight with 3 or 4 games to go, and we need to win all 4 and looking for results from other teams. We are a mid-table side, which I know is not good enough, but we are a mid-table side. Does the decision for the manager's job, whether it is temporary or whether it is full-time, does that change with your thoughts right now, or would it change with your thoughts on maybe Thursday after we've had 9 points taken off?
Yeah, well, any interview they do with the manager if they're doing them today and tomorrow and Wednesday. And if it does come on Thursday, obviously, or if it's delayed, it has to be with the caveat that you might have 9 less points than we have on the table now. I think if on Thursday it's 9 points, I mean, hopefully it will be 6. I don't know what your undercover sources are saying, if it's definitely going to be 9.
They are undercover, by the way. They're hiding in a cabinet somewhere in deepest, darkest Seagrave.
Yeah, I meant to say off the record. I think if we lose 9 points,
no.
If we did lose 9 points on Thursday, you would be more tempted to go with Neil Warnock than Will Still, for example. I actually think Neil Warnock for the next few months wouldn't be actually that bad of an idea.
I know you've been brought some alcohol for Christmas, but put the brandy down. You don't have to drink it all at once. You have to steady yourself throughout the course of the year till next Christmas. Neil Warnock, never in a million years. Now, what we are going to play, we're going to play a game. Okay, we're going to play a yes/no game. It's going to be quick fire. You can maybe have a sentence, James, but we're going to do quick fire here. You're going to answer first, then I'm going to answer first, and we're going to go back and forth. So whilst you're watching out there, wherever you're watching at home, maybe you're in the car, maybe you're listening tomorrow morning on the commute to work, we're going to play a yes/no game of managers. Okay, I'm going to go down the list according to odds, and I've mentioned before in all the time that we've been doing for Fox's sake in a podcast form, we've been going for 12 years now. Would you have it? So we've gone for a few managers. I've always said, and I work in the betting industry, that the most volatile market in any sport, in any betting market, is a manager's market. When it comes to football, someone farts a name and it sounds like Gary Rowett, all of a sudden half a point gets taken off the price.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go down the list and I'm going to say a name and I want yes or no, and you can play along at home. Yes or no, maybe a reason, but it's got to be, you got a couple of seconds to say yes or no. Right, you go first, then me. Okay, Gary Rowett.
Yes.
It's a no for me. He was disappointing as a player and I think he's been disappointing as a manager. Okay, Andy King. I'm going to go yes, but I want behind him Robert Huth and maybe someone else who was in the league-winning side, kind of a band of brothers type job. Andy King, James.
Yes, Andy King, and I would caveat it with maybe having, I don't know, a Steve McLaren-like person as assistant manager, like an experienced assistant manager.
Lee Carsley.
Yeah, absolutely. Top 5 choice.
Okay, well, he was my number one for what we've got at the moment. Alan Sheehan. It's a no for me.
This is going to make me sound unprofessional. I don't really know who that is.
Oh, it's definitely a no then if you don't know who he is. No, it's a no, unfortunately. Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a yes for me. Here we go. Who can say no quickest? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Russell Martin. No.
No. Definitely not now, anyway. Maybe in the summer, an absolute push.
Someone actually I wanted as Leicester manager before. Now, which time was it? This was before Rude. Gary O'Neill, James.
Yes, I would like Gary O'Neill, but hasn't he just taken a international job?
I believe he's now part of the Blue Corporation. That he's involved with Chelsea. Isn't he going to Strasbourg and he's going to be the next Liam?
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I think he's on that conveyor belt now. So if it gets offered to you, surely you're going to go for it. But I think he's a good manager, and I think he's turned down plenty of jobs already, top end of the Championship, low end of the Premier League. So maybe that would have been a bit unrealistic. Nigel Pearson, James.
No.
It's a no, Nigel Pearson. I think I would just have to say yes. My heart, I'm a lover, not a fighter, so I'm going to go for yes. Nigel, if you're listening,
well,
rescue us.
Let's change.
Rescue me.
I personally would say probably yes, but
you've changed your tune from about 9 seconds ago.
But I can't. After the reason that he got fired, I can't really see a situation where he would be allowed back in, unless I mean, I don't know. It was 10 years ago, and people make mistakes or whatever. But
I think that's water under the bridge, big time for both the football club,
yeah,
the public
potentially,
ownership.
yeah.
Yeah. Just a few comments. These names show how far we've fallen. Absolutely. Same old names. Pearson could not work with Rudkin. Maybe again. Yeah, it's there might be a few. I said water under the bridge. Maybe the bridge has actually been burnt with the water flowing pretty steadily underneath it. Okay, let's carry on. Alex Neil. Interesting actually, but I'm going to go no. He's actually he would be a. Do you know what? Fully enough, I could see that happening, but it's going to be a no from me.
Well, he's done the rounds, hasn't he, of championship clubs, so he's experienced. But I'm not. No, I'm not really convinced.
On the comments, someone mentioned Derek McInnes, who he's at Hearts at the moment, trying to win the league.
Yeah.
So we're linked with Derek McInnes. Says buzzer, evening buzzer. Yeah, I just can't see him leaving Hearts at all. I don't think that's the case, and that's a really good project, of course, with Tony Bloom's money, the Brighton owner, funding Hearts. They're doing well. Right, here we go. Now we're into the 33 to 1s, so the names are going to get a bit strange. Hold on to your hats, everyone. Right, here we go. Dean Smith, no. David Wagner, no.
I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that. He has got a team promoted before.
Yes, Huddersfield.
It didn't go very well, but then he's got. Yeah,
we'll carry on. Your mate Will Still.
Yes, but maybe not.
Paul Higginbottom.
No.
Stephen Gerrard. I think we both kind of said yes. It's a soft yes.
He didn't, like we said this yesterday, like what he achieved with Rangers is not to be downplayed at all, because winning that league with Rangers is not the same as when Walter Smith was winning the league with Rangers. He did fail in Saudi Arabia, which is not, it's difficult to say, is that the real world?
One thing that didn't fail, and that was his bank balance, I'll tell you that.
Yes, of course. And his, his moral compass, obviously.
Why
not? Why not?
Yeah, I think it's a soft yes. By the way, Treble6 says I think it'll be Jesse March, so we'll just throw in Jesse March's name, James.
Well, that'd have to be the World Cup, isn't it? He's taking Canada to the World Cup. Again,
I don't think it's the case. No.
I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. Again, I think he's someone who has a good football brain. The issue is, one of the issues I think we have with all of these names is because the fans, they're so volatile that I think there are quite a few of the names that we've spoken about, even the ones we've said yes to, that they might reject out of hand.
Are you saying that they're gonna try and bring in as a manager to appease the fans rather than actually what we need?
Not necessarily, but like I wouldn't mind. I don't think Jesse March, for example, would be a bad appointment, but I could kind of see the fan base just going, "No, it's more of the same. You failed at Leeds. It's just a big block." Whereas I don't think that would happen with Steven Gerrard, for example.
I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a popular decision. By the way, there will be a free article on for Fox8.news tomorrow morning. Andy Moore going through all the big names, the pros and the cons, etc. So head to for Fox8.news now, and you can check out all of the comments, or the features, or the opinion pieces, or the historical pieces, the interview with former players, or the Leicester City women's content, the Sunday quiz, by the way, 10 great questions every Sunday done by my good self. And just, by the way, in February, there's some corker questions, by the way. I'm really quite impressed with those every Sunday. And then, of course, the top 100 players who have worn the royal blue of Leicester being counted down. Loads more as well. It's growing by the day. Head to for Fox8.news. It costs a pint a month. It's £5 a month. And basically what you get everything. And also it keeps this podcast free as well. Not just this podcast, but the preview with Rob Hayes and the Leicester City women's football show as well. But tomorrow there will be a free article on there, so you can read that for free for fox8.news, and it's Andy Moore going through all of the top contenders for the job. And of course, if there's any developments, Andy will be right there with an article straight onto for fox8.news. Let's carry on. Right, Chris Wilder. It's not going to happen, is it? So we'll leave that one.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say yes.
Carlos Corberan.
I don't know who that is.
It's a former Sheffield Wednesday. That is definitely going to be put to one side. Jesse Marsh, by the way, 33-1. A few interesting names. Robbie Keane was mentioned in a few places. I'll throw in Damien Duff as well to talk to my producer at work, who is Irish and knows all about that. Never in a million years was his comment regarding those two. So that's what I'm going to say.
I don't know why Robbie Keane would leave a title fight in Hungary to come to Leicester. Damien Duff, he seems to be well regarded as a coach. He's obviously at is it Shelbourne? I think he's obviously plying his trade. I think he probably needs another 50 games or so as a manager, 100 games, something like that. Be a big jump.
We've got Claude Puel and also Travel Sick, by the way. Yeah, we missed out massively on Carrick. Whether Carrick would have come, I don't really know. But it shows you what a new manager can do, and a little bit of a change around and the effort all of a sudden being put in by players. Right, couple of extra United players. Wayne Rooney, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Well, what the Wayne Rooney, I mean, he shouldn't really ever get a football manager job again. He can't do the job.
Solskjaer wouldn't come.
I mean, Solskjaer, he did okay at Man United. He didn't do very well at Cardiff, and he obviously did very well at Mulder. He failed at Besiktas as well, which I think has gone under the radar a little bit. So I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't be adverse to it in the summer. So if they brought in a technical director of football, and all of a sudden they bring in Ollie, and I think contact-wise, etc., I think there'll be a lot of contacts out there. I think that will be a manager that the wider Leicester public would actually get behind. But I think it's maybe something for the summer if we're safe. I think that's the way I would look at it. Oh, Travel Sick again. Yeah, I'll take Ollie. There you go. So that's a thumbs up for my thought there as well. Ryan Mason. Oh dear, no, he failed at West Brom. We're not having that. And then we're into the kind of the wild and wonderful names. Chris Davis, Richie Wellens, Steve Bruce, Robbie Savage. They're all on there. Tony Pulis, your mate as well. They're all on there. But the favourite is Gary Rowett. And that's the rumour coming out of the club at the moment, isn't it? A safe pair of hands until the summer. We'll just go back to what we were saying at the start of the show, James, that Gary Rowett at the moment is the favourite, and a few reputable sources are mentioning that his name has been bandied around in the corridors of the King Power. But of course, how many times have we seen an appointment at Leicester or any football club with a new manager, and the actual favourite, and maybe even long odds on favourite according to the bookmakers, has actually been nowhere near the job and not being considered. When it comes to that safe pair of hands, I mentioned that someone like a Tony Mowbray, someone just for the next few months. That would be it. Just someone for the next few months, a steady pair of hands, maybe alongside a King. You mentioned having someone just behind. If Andy King maybe is an assistant to a Tony Mowbray, but it's maybe Andy King's views, and maybe
Andy King has to stay, whoever comes in.
Yeah, maybe he's been in the background, biting his fist at the formation, at the tactical changes, none. At the substitutions, desperate. And maybe at the actual team selection itself, maybe he's been doing what a Tonda's been doing over at Southampton, and all of a sudden they picked up form massively. And yes, they have dropped off somewhat, but there was a huge turnaround in their form once Will Still, your mate, has gone. So maybe that's the case. So that would be my person. It would be someone like a Tony Mowbray until the end of the season, and then hopefully we're in the Championship and we can go forward. If not, a Lee Carsley in the summer to then have the projects of building Leicester back up. I want a safe pair of hands until the summer, James. Your selection.
Safe pair of hands until the summer. I think it's quite difficult.
Please say Warnock.
I don't think Warnock would be a bad idea. He mates with Pep now. Pep loves him. Pep thinks he's a genius. Uh, I I was saying this last night. Does that type of manager exist anymore? You know, is there a 2026 Big Sam? Because that's what we want. We want Big Sam or a version of Big Sam.
But this is the thing. I'm not entirely sure that we actually do. I think we need a safe pair of hands, not an actual firefighter. Maybe just someone who drives the engine, not quite the person who puts out the fire. We mentioned about Manchester United earlier, and I was talking again today, it's funny in the world of football, isn't it? And especially in the modern world of football, with everything that goes on. And we spoke about players, Instagram feeds, etc., and the way that they reacted to the sacking of Marti Cifuentes. And you look at the upturn in form by one or two clubs, okay, like of West Ham and especially Manchester United. And you wonder what has happened behind the scenes beforehand, and also what's happened since a manager goes and a new person comes in, and why all of a sudden a lot more effort's being put in on the field, and all of a sudden these players signed for multi-million pounds and are meant to be better than everyone else in the league or right up there, all of a sudden start performing like they should. And it comes down in this world of football from Instagram profiles and who follows who, and all of a sudden, if they don't follow that person, it means they're gonna move. And you go back 40 or 50 years, you look at the top 100 players, and even back even further, and you think it's a completely different game now, but it's not, because in men's football, it is 11 men on the field versus 11 men on the field. In the women's game, it's 11 women versus 11 women. And as much as all the hullabaloo that goes around in the world of football, it is still that 11 versus 11. And the first thing that you need to do is put effort in and hard work and work for your teammates, work with the person in front of you, behind you, to the next of you, work in pairs, the old 4-4-2 formation. You work in pairs. If you're the right winger, you work with the person behind you at fullback. You work with the person in the midfield next to you. Okay, the old adage of tying ropes around each other that they used to do at Manchester United back in the days, in the early 90s. Nobby Stars tying ropes around each other. So when one fullback went one side, all the centre halves, etc., and they all got pulled along. It's a very simple game, football, but it starts with hard work. And that's something we haven't seen with Leicester for an awful long time. And what we want in terms of a manager who's going to be there maybe till the end of the season is someone who can reinstill that work ethic that all these players have wherever they've been. Maybe we haven't seen it in a Leicester shirt, or maybe we have seen it in a Leicester shirt, but in the distant past. Why did they do it under Enzo Maresca and maybe one or two other managers if they go back even further than that? And why were they not doing it for Marti Cifuentes? That question, that can be put to one side for now, and that's for Andy Moore to write about on Fox8.news. What we're talking about is, why are these players not performing for Cifuentes, and who will they then perform for? And can that manager get the performances out of them? And the performance, by the way, it starts with hard work. And that's what we're not being seen in the Leicester shirt. So we need someone to come in and tell a few home truths. And I think a lot of people have been looking at Nigel Pearson as that manager. I'm looking maybe slightly away from Nigel, because I think if Nigel Pearson wanted the job, and I think if Nigel Pearson put his hand up in the air, I think he maybe even would have said something by now. He's been very quiet. And I think he may have even been appointed straight away, or I think there would have been word from the football club straight away saying, look, we're going back in that direction. But that's why I'm looking down someone like a Tony Mowbray, a nice figure everyone can get behind, working with what's already there at the football club in Andy King. I would love to see someone else, or maybe two or three former players, okay, who maybe have coaching qualifications. Maybe they don't. But what they would do is they would reinstill a bit of confidence, hopefully in the players, but in the stands as well. Having someone like a Huth standing on the touchline, maybe even a former goalkeeper, maybe in a Schwarzer or someone in that ilk, or maybe a Danny Simpson even, or even a Danny Drinkwater, whoever wants to be there and not represent what we've done before and look what I've done and stand there with a medal around their neck, or even two medals around their neck, but to just reinstill that bit of confidence and say to the players, by the way, I was there in the Championship, and look what I went on to accomplish at this club. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a big football club here, and it's being ran into the ground by people upstairs. We know that. But on the field of play, we just want that little bit of effort. And I think if you have an old pair of hands with, again, a little bit of a band of brothers led by Andy King in behind, I think that's probably the way forward. Hopefully, with a 9-point deduction that we can easily take away with a few good performances. James, have I probably ranted on for a couple of minutes too long? Have I said absolute nonsense for the last few minutes?
No. Do you know, like, there's like a cliche, isn't there, in a political discourse where people say, let's run a government like a business. But that doesn't make sense because the government isn't a business. So you can't really, those two things don't, they're not synonyms for each other, right? You can't just, so as much as like we and all of us talk about the club needs structure and needs identity and all of those things, technical directors, director of football, and all of that is absolutely true. I think there is something at the center of football that is kind of irrationally emotional that no structure can take away from. So we talk about what's happened at Man United over the last 2 weeks. Well, you obviously, someone might argue, well, Man United should be able to win 2 football games in a row. That guy with the haircut definitely is saying that. But there must be something that's happened in that last 2 weeks where the emotion and the feeling inside the dressing room and the training ground has just shifted slightly. And then all of a sudden, the players either feel freer or that manager, they care about that manager more. All of these types of things that are really hard to quantify. That's what we need for the next 4 months, is someone who can just change the valve a little bit just to get us over the line, which obviously the target is to stay up. That's our target now for the rest of the season. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. I mean, perfectly put. Really, perfectly put. And that could be a change of tactics. It could be a change of personnel. It could just be a change of attitude as well. I heard one comment actually when and they were talking about the game on Saturday, saying, we're losing by a goal to nil, and there's a good 20 odd minutes to go, and all of a sudden you're seeing just before they scored, and our back line is passing the ball around the back line, and you're looking at going, hang on, like the team are playing that one style of football, not understanding the situation, or should I say being given the instructions from the bench to do that, and nothing's changing. There's no adaptability, and I think we've lost that in football as well, especially with a new breed of manager. It's almost like they've been programmed, they've learnt one way in their coaching career, or maybe learning to be a coach. They've looked at one style of football, and that's the way that they play. You look at Ruben Amorim, exactly that situation. 3-4-3, and it doesn't matter who I've got to play, it doesn't matter what player is available, I'm playing them in that formation. Completely crackers. And also, if it doesn't fit, if that player doesn't fit, doesn't matter. I'm either going to have to play them, or they're not going to play. They're off on the sidelines, and then Mainoo's in and is playing very well. Leicester, perfect example. Saturday, if you listen to the preview that we did last week for the Oxford game, we confidently predicted that he wouldn't change the formation, but we highlighted the problems he's got in midfield. Having those two midfielders, having Skip, having James not available. So with the side that they're playing, Oxford at home, with the situation that Leicester are in, to just then put in 2 players in that position and go, okay, we're going to play exactly the same way, it's completely crackers, absolutely bonkers for me. Why they weren't giving more help in midfield, no idea. And to have Chowdhury in midfield and then maybe Ricardo at fullback, who had just been turned into pieces the game before, again, should maybe have been the other way around, or even, for me, both in midfield and have 3 at the back for that one game and see what happens. But anyway, that's all for the next podcast, which will be the preview, because we're talking all things Charlton at home. So yeah, that's coming up later in the week. So make sure you do follow us on social media. We've got all the links on for fox8.news, but if you're on X on Twitter, it's at FFSPod. You can find us on Facebook. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, completely free, and it means that you won't miss a show. This week, we have got a women's football show, and we've got a really good episode as well, talking all things the game of the weekend against West Ham with Lily Saunders, with a very special guest. I won't ruin it, but a really good guest. And if you listen back to all the others or watch back the others as well, had some top guests on the women's football show. And then it will be the preview with Rob Hayes, talking all things the game at the weekend with Leicester. But of course, if there are any developments, when it comes to point deductions or also maybe a manager, then we'll, of course, have an emergency podcast. And also, you'll get all the coverage on for Fox8.news. A reminder, tomorrow morning, first thing, for Fox8.news, Andy Moore going through all of the candidates for the Leicester City job, all the top candidates, and it will be a free article. The rest of the Fox8.news is the price of a pint per month. It keeps this podcast completely free, and what you get is a whole load of content, plenty of opinions, plenty of features, and also lots of interviews. There's quizzes, there's top 100 countdowns, there's all sorts on for Fox8.news. Take a look first, and then if you like and if you can afford to, then please subscribe. Again, it keeps this podcast free, and it's been going since the 1st of January, so 26 days old, and there's loads of content on there, and it's only going to be more. And what you're getting a website, £4 or £5 a month, with full-time employees working hard to bring you independent Leicester City coverage for Fox's sake. That's it for the podcast. Thanks, James. Have you had any change of mind? Are you still on the Will Still train, or have you put that glass of whiskey down?
No, I'm going Will Still as manager and Gareth Southgate as director of football. That's my pick.
Right, James has lost the plot. Doing 2 podcasts in one day, it's completely ruined him. Just a few more comments before we go. Let's go through a few of these. We've got Stephen goes, God save us from Warnock. That was James's point of view, so that's fine. Travel sick. David Angelotti might be one. We wanted him before, didn't we? That's correct. And also assistant managers, Johnny from Broncos, maybe. There's possibilities we could go down that Maresca route. Maybe that's for the summer. So we'll see what happens there. We might get some stick for it, but if we wait until the summer, Wilfred Nancy will be a good shout. Well, we won't look at what he did up at Celtic. We missed the O'Neill train, didn't we? Massively.
Yes.
But we'll forget about that. Nigel Pearson is quite well at the moment, I thought. I'm just going on what former Radio Leicester producer Jason Bourne at TalkSport said. Someone asked him that, and he turned around and said, no, he's okay to manage, or in his opinion, he's okay. And his opinion is probably because he's probably spoken.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah, that's a comment from him. So we'll take it. That's gospel. Barry Ferguson, yay or nay? Be a nay for me, really, to be honest. And I fear that we'll get Russell Martin. I just think what you said, James, earlier about appeasing the fans. I think I just don't think they'll do that. I don't think they can do that. I think there will be uproar at the King Power. Now, completely away from whether he'll be a good manager for Leicester, we both went no straight away, didn't we? But I think surely someone behind the scenes, surely even at Leicester, someone would turn around and go, I just don't think that's a good idea.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if he was Rudkin's number 1 choice. He seems like a Rudkin archetype manager, but yeah, I think he burnt a lot of reputation this year.
I think he would fit the profile, certainly, of what they're looking for, but I just think at this current time, I'm going to say this now, and this might come back to haunt me, but I don't think even this board at Leicester City and who's in charge now and the decisions being made, I don't think they'd dare do it. But we'll see. Anyway, that's it for the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with the Women's Football Show, and of course the preview later on in the week. Head to our socials, head to fox8.news. Don't forget that free article tomorrow. But head to fox8.news, have a peruse. And if you feel like signing up for £5, it's much appreciated. And again, it keeps this and all the other podcasts completely free. Fox8.news, but from me and James, we're going to have a lie down, and I'm going to call an AA meeting for James because he's obviously got a huge problem.